Once again, we're here at the Bay State Exchange. My name's Lou Pacheco, and this is the program where people, candidates or office holders get to talk at length to people, explain their positions, explain why they're here, explain what they're doing if they're already in office. And this morning, I'm happy to say I have a man running for the 9th Bristol district as state representative, which includes Dartmouth and part of New Bedford, and his name is Alan Garcia. And good morning, Mr. Garcia. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing fine. And yourself?
Well, it's great to have you here.
Good.
Doing
It's
good
good to be here. I appreciate you inviting me down here to talk to you and to talk to the people and the issues.
Well, thank you. We do this. We've had quite a few people on, and it's well received. That the information gets on YouTube, obviously, and it's just a forum, an exchange where people can give their ideas. So why don't we start right off by letting people know who you are and why you're running and where you come from.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Dartmouth, which is basically the vast majority of this district is in Dartmouth, and there are a couple of precincts in New Bedford. I grew up in Dartmouth. 49 years I spent there. I went to public school. I graduated from public high school, Dartmouth High School. I went on I joined the Army National Guard. I became a military policeman, served my country. I then came back home. I attended public colleges. Well, I attended Bristol Community College, graduated from there. I went on to, it was SMU at the time, it's now UMass Dartmouth. I got a sociology degree there. Went on to Northeastern University. I got my master's in criminal justice, and I liked working with people. I became a police officer because I like to help people. There's arguments, as you very well know, as being a former police chief. There are different reasons why people get into law enforcement. My reason was to help people, and what I saw is that I could further myself in helping people and be proactive by getting a degree in social work. So I went on to Salem State College, and I got a master's degree in social work. I finished my degree with the EPA, which is the Employee Assistance Program, helping troopers and families of troopers and families who suffered trauma from critical incidents, shootings, suicides, the loss of their parent and their parents in suicide or a shooting. I decided I wanted to run for state representative because I feel that the state representative who is currently there is not a representative of the people. He is closely associated, and he has been identified by the Standard Times in an article they once did as being part of a political machine. I think political machines should be identified, it should be classified, and I think that it should be illegal to have political machines because I think they serve nothing but themselves. They don't serve the people. So I decided to run because Chris Markey, my opponent, he has no office in the area. So people, you can't be a voice for the people if you can't.
Wait a minute. He doesn't have an office in his district?
He does not have an office in his district. You can't even get in touch with him.
Come on.
Nope, can't get in touch with him. If I were to ask, the vast majority of people, if you ask them who the state representative is, they wouldn't know. Of course they wouldn't know. Where is he? They have no idea. I hear that I've never seen it, but I guess he posts when he's available. I think that we need to be there for the people when they're available, not when we're available. We have to make ourselves available to them. He has no district office. You cannot be a voice of the people if you can't hear the voices of the people. So I want to implement an office so people can walk in and say, Alan, I have this problem. Where do I go? What kind of resources are available to me and my family? We have an issue going on in the family. Or if there's an issue that's going on, whether it be legal or otherwise, they can bring it to me, and I could explain it to them, or I could even be a voice for them and try to implement or try to sponsor bills that make sense, that would be for the people, not for political friends, not for lawyers, not for special interest groups, but for the people that I represent.
Well, you have a formidable task because he's an incumbent.
Right.
And I don't know that he represents a machine, but I guess he is part of the, what we call the older part of the political establishment in the New Bedford area. Not necessarily Dartmouth.
Right, not necessarily that, no.
But to take on an incumbent with somebody with an old political establishment behind him, you need some serious volunteers. You need volunteers that want to change things.
Right.
Do you have that?
Right, yes, we do. We have a good group of volunteers out there all the time, making phone calls, banging on doors. We did a sign hold and a visibility with 60 people, and that wasn't even trying hard. You know, we're going to continue to do exactly what we're doing. And you're right, when you're going against an incumbent, it's difficult. You know, that's the problem right now, I think, with the system. We have a broken system. We have a system, when it comes to legislators, those who make these laws, I'm not talking about other races, I'm talking as legislators. I think what happens is people do not challenge them because of the incumbency. They start to build up a large amount of money. They start building up this huge amount of support. So that's why the Standard Times identified that there are only two legislators that are being challenged. It's my opponent and another opponent out of Fairhaven. And I think it's sad because people don't have a choice. So if they go over to, and you don't like your state representative, and he keeps going over, she keeps going unopposed, they build up this large amount of money, then nobody wants to oppose them. So if you're unhappy with them, you go to the polls to vote, what happens? You look down, well, I'm gonna vote that person out. You look down at the poll and you say, okay, let me vote, no, no opponent. And I think that's a huge issue right now, that these state legislators are running unopposed because the system does not allow for the elimination of this type of political machines and political.
So you think you're tapping into a group of people that want some change?
Right, absolutely.
And that's what
right.
the feeling you're getting with your volunteers.
Right.
And
That's
now,
what-
did you say you had 60-some people at a
Yes,
visibility?
at a visibility, yes, we had 60-something people.
That sounds like
Yeah.
governor material.
Yeah.
You're not
Well,
running for governor.
And it's amazing because people say that, even whenever any task we do together. And these aren't people that I've given jobs to, because I've never, I've ran for it, but I've never been in office. These aren't people I've given jobs to. These are not people I've promised jobs to. These are just people who believe in me and believe that I will do the right thing. Because no matter what the issue is, if the person doesn't have the integrity or the response to take on the responsibility and the honesty to do the job, then we'll go to the issues if they're not going to carry out and answer the issues and answer to the people and do what's right.
Well, that sounds like that you have a good honest start going there for your campaign.
Yeah, and you have to be a representative of the people. It's not what Alan wants, it's what the people want. And again, that's why I want to implement this office. I can hear what they want, because it's not, I don't want to be elected for the purpose of going up to the State House to advocate for what I want. I want to go up there to be a voice and advocate for the people, whether it's contrary to what I truly believe, but if that's what they want, we can work together and get these things done in the best interest of the voters.
That sounds good. Now, what do you, as far as the issues that you're dealing with down there, I say down there because we're in Rainham right now, that you're talking about supporting. I know that one of the issues is the landfill. Could you give us a little background
Right.
on that?
There's a landfill that is up in North Dartmouth, and this has been an issue. It's not a new issue. It's been something that's been going on for 40 years, where they've been dumping material in there that it's feared that is contaminated. Now, the EPA
So this
is
is stumps, building material,
trees. And who knows, because it was done in secrecy. So people don't even know, but they're concerned that it may be something that could be hazardous to the aquifer.
Have you
It could
seen
get into
this-
the water.
this-
I've been to that site, that location,
good.
right? And what happened is I was taking signatures, and going around to find out what people want, because I know they haven't had a chance to express that to the current person. One of the things they brought to me was the landfill, and how they were concerned about the fact that it could affect the aquifer and it could affect their wells in the area. And it was a legitimate complaint. Now, they've been fighting with different agencies, trying to get them to clean it, not cap it. Now, what they want to do is they want to cap it.
That's the battle cry, right? Clean it, not cap it.
That's right. Don't cap it, clean it. That's what they want to do. And I'm supporting the cleaning of it, because they have done this before. They've capped them, and it's failed.
Now, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is just
Mhm.
superficial. I did a lot of work with Dartmouth as a police officer. outstanding police department. There.
I agree with you, they are.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful town. It's got everything.
Thank
from
you.
the boats and the rivers and the estuaries and shellfish to the farms and the quarries. It's like paradise down there in a lot of places.
Thank you.
But when they're capping it, they're actually talking about bringing in, as I understand it, more contaminated fill that's less contaminated than what's there and putting it on top. Is that?
Exactly, that's what they're trying to do, yeah. They do have a classification for that type of, that fill. They wanna bring it in from different areas, Boston, I heard even New York, and bring it in, and they're gonna bring that contaminated material, less contaminated, and put it on a contaminated site, and build it up, and I think it was somewhere around 60 feet to build this hill up to that. And they've done it before. There's another community that's done it in Massachusetts, and that community escapes me now, but they did the same thing, and it failed. And they're afraid it's gonna fail, but it makes sense if somebody's making money on this, capping it. So my feeling is they're gonna cap it and then say, oh, well, years later, well, no, maybe we should clean it. And to me, it's just gonna be a money pit. It's gonna go on and on and on and cost taxpayers
And I would
millions and
assume
millions
that
of dollars.
most people are for cleaning it up properly.
Right, people, people.
And if Dartmouth is laid out, where is it in relation to Dartmouth? Is it the south or the center or the north?
It's in the northern part of the town.
Northern
Right,
part.
the northern part of the town, right.
And I would assume that those people wanna clean it.
Yes, absolutely.
And how about your opponent?
My opponent was, from what I was told when I initially started getting this information, the reason why they were coming to me is they said that when he was running and he was all for it, then he backed off on them. As a matter of fact, in a meeting, it was told to me, and I'll paraphrase, I can't quote him because I wasn't there. He said that we're in the fourth quarter, we're down by, I don't know, 4 or 5 touchdowns, and we might as well give it up. And you know, and I don't doubt that they're in the fourth quarter, and I don't doubt that they're down that many touchdowns, but you don't give up until you have the last tick on the clock. And people feel that he bailed out on them, that he didn't stay to the very end. In fact, I heard from one person who asked me that they want to remain anonymous, is that he actually called one of the residents in the area trying to convince him that it was a better deal to cap it. So for him to go around saying that he supports cleaning, if he even goes around saying that, there is a record, it is a record, because I know at that meeting, he said it in a public meeting, and that's what he said, and I just don't believe that, you know, if their initiatives fail, they fail, but you have to go right down to the last second, fighting for the people. Currently, it is in, there's lawsuits going on, so, to be resolved, so, I'm not sure how much comment you're gonna get on
Well,
this.
I like sports analogies too, but not if I'm drinking dirty water.
Right, absolutely.
Another issue that I know is huge down there, because I work down there, is the offshore wind initiative.
Right. Right,
Could
the
you
wind
explain that?
turbines, yes.
Wind turbine.
Right, see, I'm totally for renewable fuel, you know what I mean, clean fuel. And, but the problem is, and I was asked this just recently from one of the media outlets, how I felt about requiring utility companies to purchase electricity from offshore turbines.
Now, they, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, they would require people, the companies to buy it, to make it profitable enough for people to do it.
Absolutely, right. So that's exactly what it is. It's trying to, it's just, I guess it's a motivation for people to go out and put
So
these
they're
offshore
trying to
turbines.
make the market.
Right. My concern is I think that if we require these companies, the utility companies, to purchase this, I think what we'll be doing is we'll be taking away we'll be kind of, in a sense, monopolizing, we'll be taking away the price competitiveness. And I think that right now, people, with the state of the economy, they don't have a lot of money to be spending on energy. I know we try to keep things as clean as possible. I know there's plenty of people who would love to put wind turbines on their property and raise their own, but it's too expensive. I think right now, from what I've seen in the research, that it is too expensive. The maintenance of those, of the offshore wind turbines, the corrosion, and even their susceptibility to being harmed by storms, it still hasn't been totally tested, from what I've been able to find. So it's just like with the oil thing. Every time something happens, the oil prices go up because some crisis took place. I'm a little bit concerned that if we require them to do it, I love the fact that they want to do this, the renewable energy, clean energy, I'm all for that, but it has to be affordable to the people, and I think that would, ultimately, I think the consumer would not be able to, that the consumer should have competitive rates, competitive prices. Another source to go to, and they do have the solar panels. There are other ways we can get good renewable
All right,
sources.
well, we're gonna take a little break right there, because this is the time when my executive producer here does a public service announcement. So we'll be back in just a couple of minutes, and thank you very much, Mr. Hi, we're back again here with Mr. Alan Garcia, the candidate for the 9th Bristol District down in Dartmouth, and a couple of wards and precincts in New Bedford. Welcome back, Alan, and let's switch gears a little bit from the sea, come back onto the land, and talk about your views on education.
Okay, education
You're a professor too.
Yes, I am, right. I didn't mention it early in the program, but right. Currently, I'm a professor at Bristol Community College, where I teach criminal justice. I teach human services at Massasoit Community College.
So you had a full career as a state trooper.
Right.
And then now you're teaching.
Right. And I teach at, from time to time, I teach at the Bridgewater State University. So I'm definitely for education. I think that the money, I think we should look closely at, because the question I was asked one time is raising taxes for education. Now, Chapter 70 does set minimums and maximums, and it's all, in the aid to the cities.
Chapter 70
right. It's education. It's the funding of the education. So I know that we have proper funding, adequate
And
funds.
that comes from the state down to
Right.
the local.
Exactly. And we have adequate funds. I don't, again, I'd love to say, hey, let's throw, let's all chip in and throw money into education. But the thing is people are tired of this tax and spend attitude, and they can't see where their money's going. I think that what this state needs to do is find out where the waste is, where the wasteful spending is, take the money, streamline it, and put it into programs that is going to give people the skills to go out in today's society and get good jobs. So, I don't think there's a need at this time anyway, and I'm one for not raising taxes. So I would have to say that I think that we're adequately funded for the education.
And you're saying this with a background of you're seeing these students after high school when they come
Right.
through, and many times at going to BCC, they're getting prepared to go to another college.
Right,
So
absolutely.
you're right there at the cusp
Right.
between the public school
And college,
education and the
higher
college
education,
and higher
right, yeah,
education.
right. So I definitely support higher education, public education. I'll do, as a state representative, I'll do everything I can to make sure that the funds are being properly allocated and the money's being spent in a way that impacts the education for the children and for our students.
All right, there's another issue I know that is near and dear to the heart of everybody in Fall River, New Bedford, Dartmouth, and that is the commuter rail.
Commuter rail, I'm 110% behind.
Tell
the
us
commuter
about
rail.
what's going on with that, what's happening with it, where it's at, is it funded, is it not funded, what's been done the last few years?
See, what's happening, I know, obviously, I'm not the insider, so I don't know exactly, I know exactly what people are being told, but I think people are frustrated with the fact that, they're spending money, they're reviewing and reviewing, analyzing and analyzing, making promises. There is we can't find a timeline, then they don't have a timeline, then there's money, then there's not money. I think what needs to be, again, we need to find out where the money's being allocated, carefully scrutinize the plan, the implementation of the plan. Are they spending too much in certain areas? Are we spending more money evaluating the project than we are in actually implementing this project? Whether or not the state can find ways to get bonds to fund it, grants to fund this commuter rail. And I think we should be a little more aggressive in that area to try to get this commuter rail in so people have access and opportunity to go back and forth to Boston and travel where they can get higher paying jobs and other opportunities. But I am 110% for the rail. Now, as far as raising taxes, again, the question's been asked.
Now, would it actually touch Dartmouth?
Yeah, well, not actually run through Dartmouth into New Bedford.
Into New Bedford?
Yeah, into New Bedford.
And what would it actually mean for the people that are talking to you? Do a
Well-
lot of those people commute out of the area?
Right, schools, going to colleges, accessing schools, the colleges in Boston, jobs, it would be a less expensive way to get to, we hope anyway, to get to Boston.
So this would take some of the pressure off 24.
Right, exactly.
Now, as a law enforcement, you patrol 24,
Right,
as did
absolutely.
Pretty crowded out there.
Crowded, traffic backs up, right?
Lot of accidents.
Yes, a lot of, car crashes.
Old highway, poorly
Yeah.
designed for
Yes,
today's
exactly,
standards.
today's standards, today's vehicles, and
So you believe that this commuter rail would take some of that off?
I think it would take some of that pressure off, yeah, and I think it would be a benefit, you know? And then they say, you know, they talked about raising the gas tax. I mean, the gas tax already is high. I think it's somewhere around 24, 25 cents. Don't hold me to it, it's somewhere in that area. Then they wanna raise the gas tax. My concern is that I think that people spend enough money. They just have to allocate, get rid of the waste, implement, get this thing going, and stop just talking about it and do it. And, you know, it's a benefit. I think it's definitely a benefit to them.
And in Europe, I know you've gone house to house quite a bit, right?
Yes, I have.
Now, is that all over Dartmouth?
Dartmouth and the
And New
precincts in
Bedford.
New Bedford, right, yeah.
And do you find that a pretty consistent theme, that people want the commuter rail down there?
Yeah, I find that they do, yeah. They want to, and they think it's a good idea, and, but, you know, it's like anything else. We pay enough taxes, you know, and they don't wanna raise the taxes. But, you know, and they feel it's too much money being wasted. And when you think about wasted of money, that just brings me into another idea with my opponent, who's the vice chairman of the Judiciary Committee. If you look what's going on in the courts, the waste of money there with the bail review hearings. I
That was
think.
my next topic.
Oh,
Go
okay,
ahead.
all right. Well, the thing is, you know, we're trying to save, to me, my opponent is not for public safety. As a matter of fact, if you look at the way he has gone about it, I think that some of his decisions actually create a public safety problem out there.
Really?
Yes, when it comes to violence. He is gone on record, and from my understanding, he opposed it. He's for the bail reviews. And I think what happens is the bail reviews tie up, what happens to the bail reviews, I'm sure you understand, is that when somebody goes and they're denied bail in the lower court.
Now, when they're denied bail, that's with a hearing in front of a district court judge,
Right,
with witnesses.
right, with witnesses, right, and a qualified judge. See,
Yes.
back historically, at one time, judges weren't appointed like they're appointed now. They have
Right,
a
there was
strong
the-
background.
There was the big guy in town.
Right, they got it, and that's, you know what I mean, so what happened, so they didn't have a vast experience in law enforcement, so, and
But the
criminal
judges
justice.
today have been defense attorneys,
Right.
prosecutors,
Right.
law school,
Right.
bar exam.
And many times, they're the former supervisors of judges who were sitting on the higher court.
Yes.
So what happens is they appeal to go to the higher court, and it makes money for the lawyers. And what I think is, in this particular case with my opponent, being that he's a lawyer, what I think is that this system of appealing, which puts money in the pockets of defense attorneys, appeals it to the Superior Court, and here's the problem, that sometimes in the dangerousness hearings, these people are very dangerous, and they go for these hearings before the Superior Court. The Superior Court tends, if you look at the record, tends to issue a more lenient bail, or allows them back, or whatever the case is.
You're absolutely right, because they could raise the bail.
They could raise the bail.
I've never seen
But-
it.
Right, you don't, right. So what
Usually
happens
let it
is,
go.
so when you allow for this, what he oppose, what he's for the bail review, which means that these people have a higher chance of getting back on the street and being a threat to the community.
And in that subset that you're talking about, the dangerousness, now, this is, I work for Sam Sutter at the DA's office, this is one of his signature programs.
Right.
And you and I know as police officers, that to do an investigation after a shooting or somebody's been deemed dangerous and they're involved in an investigation,
Mhm.
you and I know that that person has to be removed from the neighborhood, otherwise the investigation doesn't go by.
Right,
You
because
don't
they
take
can
a
threaten,
gunslinger,
that's right, right.
dope dealing gunslinger, put them back in the neighborhood and then go have people talk to you.
Right, exactly right.
So this guy gets a dangerousness hearing because he's been found with drugs, or he's beaten up his wife, which is another common threat of these days.
Right, domestic violence. right.
Domestic violence. He gets a hearing with a qualified judge and attorneys and witnesses.
Right, yeah,
He gets a found dangerousness
right.
and then appeals immediately to the Superior Court.
And remember, these judges are judges who see these people all the time, so who's better qualified to pass judgment on whether a person, because they see the different players every
Understand
single
the
day.
context.
Right. It's just like when I was in the state police, we used to always say, who knows the town better than the town police? Or the local police. The local police know that they know who the players are. They know who the good guys are, who the bad guys, who the criminals are. I shouldn't say good and bad, but
Yeah.
who the criminals are, who the, victims are. So who knows it better than that district court judge? Now they appeal, and that very qualified judge, that case is now appealed, okay, and it costs the state $5 million a year. I'm not sure, but it's probably somewhere at $500,000 that it costs Bristol County alone, the district attorney. Now, they're gonna appeal it before a Superior Court judge who is not as in tune with the community, who now has to pass judgment, as we know from statistics that they generally lower the bail. Now, it has a higher risk of putting these people back out to victimize their victims, especially in domestic violence. We know that the vast majority of the people, many times, they go back to the batterer. It puts that person back on the street. Gangs, it puts them back on the street to intimidate their witnesses. It's cost taxpayers millions of dollars, and lines the pockets of the defense attorneys who are being paid by these public defenders, by the state. So it doesn't make any sense. So we have two issues here. We have an issue of taxpayers paying money for defense attorneys that are defending people who are criminals, and then we have the chances of having these people in the violence, and we know that's been on the increase in the violence we have in society today, allowed to go back on the street. How an attorney could not, a state representative who claims that he's protecting his community, to be against the elimination of bail review hearings and against the elimination of appealing that dangerousness hearing to the Superior Court is beyond me. The only thing I can see is it puts money in the pockets of his friend attorneys. That's all I can say. Now, I don't know, he's an attorney, and maybe sometimes he may go back to that, and I think that it's a conflict. I don't think he should be making these judgments as to whether or not it's going to benefit his paycheck.
Well, it reminds me of, as you remember, you and I are both under the system of the trial to Nova with a 6-man jury.
Right, exactly.
Which they did away with,
Right,
for
right.
exactly the same reasons.
Right.
You went in, you had a whole trial, they got to see your evidence, they got to see the witnesses, they got to do this, they got to do that.
Right.
And then if they got guilty, they just appealed it immediately to a
Right.
6-man jury.
6-man jury, right? They get 2 bites. We call that back in the road, right? 2 bites of the
Now
apple,
they're
you know?
getting 2 bites, and,
Right.
And it's one of an apple and one of a cheesecake.
Right, exactly, right, exactly. So that's, I can't understand why, if he is concerned with the safety of the citizens, especially in domestic violence, why would he be opposed to the elimination of those bail review
Well,
hearings?
I can't wait to see him and you in a debate to hash
I'd
out
love
some
to
of
debate
this.
him. I'm gonna write a letter to them, immediately, asking for to debate him on this issue. I have no problem debating him on that issue, and I hope that he can, that he'll be willing to debate me and explain to the voters why he thinks the state should spend millions of dollars representing people who have already gotten the representation and have gotten the hearings that I think that they deserve.
All right, we got about a minute left. Why don't you just finish it up with maybe telling people what you'd like them to know about you and hasn't come out in the regular meeting?
I'm just like the regular guy out there. I'm not a politician. I'm not a political person I'm not tied to a political family. I'm not tied to political machines. But I'm tied to the people who, I grew up in a very, very poor family. I paid for my college, worked my way up from the bottom. I was actually a janitor at the Bridgewater State Prison, where I became a correctional officer later. So I know what it's like to work your way up. I served my country, I served the people. I'm concerned about the safety of the people, saving people taxpayers' money, and if they want more information on me, there is more information available on my website.
Wait a minute, you started as a janitor at the House of Correction?
Yeah, at the State Prison in
State
Bridgewater.
Prison.
Right, yeah.
Then you became a correction officer.
Right.
Then you became a state trooper.
Right, yeah.
Then you got a
Worked my
double
way through
master's
college.
degree.
Right,
And now you're a professor.
right. So, I consider myself.
That's a pretty good background.
Right. I consider myself, that's what I think. I'm representative of the people who are out there now, working while going to college, and that's why I can understand and I can, empathize with what they, what they're going through and what they need.
Well, thank you very much. We're gonna wrap it up there. I
Okay.
can't be happier talking to an old law enforcement guy.
Thank you for inviting me.
And if you could just tell us where people might find more information about you?
They can find me on Facebook and they can find me on votealangarcia.com.
Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.